Hello, Oracles. Well, what a wild day we had today, trying to push up to that $200 level for Tesla. Just could not break it. And then, sort of, some reality set in for what the Fed has been doing, what the Fed said yesterday for the FOMC meeting and the interest rates going up. Kind of sitting in it, seemed like the market sold off in the second half of the day. Where do we go from here? It's going to continue to be wild. Honestly, nobody knows if we're going to go up or down. But we're going to go into some information that we learned about the Fed and what they've been doing with their balance sheet. They've been quantitative tightening, which means that they're running off their balance sheet. They're lowering everything down. They're putting less money into, they're buying less bonds. But all of a sudden, it's gone up. Ever since we saw the bank failures, they started easing. They put $400 billion back in, going in the opposite direction. So all the progress they were making, right back up again. So we'll dive into some of that information today. And of course, as always, just great conversation with you guys. We'll get into some Tesla specific stuff as well. Looking at some very strong delivery numbers. We're looking at increased estimates coming out. Even Karav went up from 430,000 to 437,000 in his estimates. So again, despite what's going on with anything with the stock price, despite what's going on with the Fed, it's one of those things where look at the fundamentals of Tesla itself. It's still going to move with the broader market, but the fundamentals, once we come through all this, are going to be super strong, and that's the important part. What's going on, Moose? Hey, what's going on, Mike? All right, let's see what else we have here. Let me see if I can bring this up. Brian may be joining us. I'm not sure tonight. I got a message to him late today. Let's see. Let's go here first. Take a look at the charts for you guys. So as you guys see, we did create that little bit of a gap down to 186. We had discussed that the other day when we saw that little bit of a jump up. So now we have another gap, 186, then 146, 130, 122, 114. So I do think we're going to get all those filled. And one of the things that I'm concerned about with that quantitative easing coming from the Fed is the fact that we had been running off nicely. Now that we kind of introduced more money into the market, that could be bullish in the near term for us to run up, but we still need to come back down again. So we might get that little bit of a push and a run because there's more money sloshing around, but having all that excess money sloshing around means we need to clean it out. So that's one of my little concerns that we have. So like looking at the chart in particular, I mean, RSI is right in the middle at 53, not a huge concern there. We can kind of go either way. So if the market decides to run, we can run. If the market decides to pull back, we can pull back. That's why it's going to be even harder to predict which way we go first. But inevitably, I think we do end up coming down to fill these gaps. But then in the long run, we just go to the moon and it doesn't matter. Let's see. What's going on, David? Dean here. What is your Tesla price prediction for 2030? I actually need to update that. Oh, here's Brian.
Hey,
what's going on?
Howdy. I don't have my headphones on, so I apologize if I'm a little echoey today.
No, you're good on my end.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah, a bit of a last minute thing. It's out running errands, and I noticed that I had a missed message from Tim.
Well, we appreciate you hopping on and taking some time with us.
Yeah,
we were just discussing the Fed and their decision to bail out the banks and throw $400 billion back onto their balance sheet, which is going to end up sloshing around in the market and creating potentially a little bit of a bull push, but like not a good bull push because we still need to continue running the balance sheet off.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, and different Feds run different styles. And boy, you know what was fun? Raising rates. Gosh, you know what we should do again? Let's raise rates. Hey, I know. Let's raise rates again.
It felt so good.
Tools in your arsenal.
It felt so good last time. Let's do it again.
And that is what's causing the stress on the banks, by the way, because they've got long-term securities that they bought at 2%, 3%, 4%, and now they're being charged 5%, 6%. That creates some liquidity issues.
Right. And then, of course, well, what do they do to save the banks from going out? They put more money into the market, which just means that they have to raise interest rates even more to squash the inflation because it's going to cause more inflation.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's a crazy one. It's a crazy.
So one of the things I was thinking about, I was talking to Open Skies over on Twitter, kind of came to a thought when Adam and I were on here discussing how when the Fed has gone up with interest rates, or when the Fed pivots, we've seen a recession. And then I thought about it and I was like, when you start really diving into the charts, timing on it, and I haven't gone into all of them, but it almost seems like, again, the Fed always looks, they're using lagging information, but it almost seems like we kind of get that information about a recession, and it's at that time that the Fed pivots kind of like to combat that recession. But we were already heading in that direction based upon monetary policy and what else was going on.
Mhm.
So I almost wonder if that's what's going to end up happening is we're going to kind of get forced into a recession, and then the Fed's going to pivot right around that same time. So you're going to be like, well, did they pivot because we're in a recession, or are we in a recession because they pivoted? And who knows? But I don't know. Either way, I think it's going to get ugly in a little while.
Well, the important thing to remember is if the good thing happens, it's because I did a thing. And if the bad thing happens, I mean, who knows what caused it? It could have been anything.
Of course.
That's the important thing.
Yes. As long as you know who was to blame and you take credit for anything that's good, that's all that matters.
Absolutely. I'm going to crack open your, so I can see the chat. Someone had asked about when I first came in, I saw there was a question about 2030 price targets.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And I don't do those, but 2030 is far out enough that I can tell you some thoughts I have.
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Sure.
So one is, where will the company be? Now, forget the stock price just for a second. The company itself, where will it be in 2030? Will they be making more cars or fewer than today? It's a silly question. The answer is far, far more. They could be. It's possible that by then they'll have surpassed General Motors at its height. And it's very likely that in a worst case scenario, they're still among the very biggest players in the world in a very bad situation. I was on a Twitter space earlier today with Wolf Financial, and one of the things we were talking about was the factories, because I brought it up. I'm good at it. And, we've got basically 4 right now, and it tells 4 stories. Fremont, as we discussed the other day on this show, Fremont is, well, it's tapped out. You can't get any more productivity, except Tom Jew's there. And yes, you can. And even before that, you could.
Yeah.
Well, Shanghai's is, we were saying that was the big question mark. We saw the sales. They came in and they're good.
Yes.
They're at a record.
Yep.
We are on pace to crush it again.
Oh, yeah.
Berlin, we know, has doubled their capacity. Texas is everybody. It's going. It's working. Everything is expanding. How many assembly plants does Ford have in order to sell 6 million cars a year? Go ahead, Tim. Give me a guess.
I'm going to guess 30 factories.
60. 100,000 a factory is the average of their assembly plants. Now, some of those might be, this actually just where we make motors. Okay, but 60.
How inefficient is that?
Just announced they're building a factory in Thailand to build 150,000 cars a year. That doesn't feel like it's worth it. That feels like a lot of effort for not very many units.
Right.
Because if you want to scale to 10 million, I think every automaker would like to be the 10 million a year guy. At 100,000 a plant, you're going to need 100 plants. That's ridiculous. You can't manage that many.
Yeah. And it just boggles my mind because, like you said, even if they're building a motor at one factory, then they have to take that motor, transport it to another factory. It's not like another part of the factory to get it to. It's a whole other factory.
Right.
That's just so many extra steps in between.
I'm going to need that in a crate. I'm going to need that on a shelf sitting. And then I'm going to need to transfer it.
God, I mean, so what I learned from my job, and it's one of the frustrations I have, is we never get enough product that we need. So I'm constantly reaching out to our other branches to get product. What happens when you move things 2, 3, 4, and 5 times? Potential damage. It's costing money. All of that money with the labor to load the thing, to get it onto the vehicle, transport costs. And then if you don't damage it, now you can actually sell it. But like, what is your actual true cost at the end of the day to make that sale? You've basically lost money. And so if GM is or Ford is doing this on the regular, just to build cars, I'm like, yeah, wow. Like think about and if you're trying to do it without damaging anything, then you have to take even more time just to make sure you do it properly. Oh, that's daunting. Just thinking about it, knowing how I do it with my company, that's daunting to think about.
So I have a website that I still run that still is a big chunk of my income. And one of the things we do is sponsored links. And our standard rate is 150. If you offer me 75 or 80, I'll probably take it. I'll get people, no joke, we'll send them over the rates and they'll say, I'll give you $20. And the policy, our policy is we don't respond to those emails. It is not worth the time to type out $20.
Dude, seriously, so here at my job the other day, they called me up and asked me if we had received the 2 $5 Dunkin' Donuts gift cards to give out to our employees. I'm like, I don't remember getting them. So we spent probably 7 people's worth of 20 minutes of payroll searching for $10 worth of gift cards. Come to find out, we had gotten them. They were given to somebody who they had a name on it for somebody who no longer works for the company that we gave to him when he showed up to visit, because why would we open somebody else's envelope?
Right.
He knew what they were for and then just left them on a desk for no one to know about because he was leaving. So he at least left them there. So we did find them, but it's like, dude,
at what cost?
Yeah, for $10. I remember I had a conversation with them a couple of years ago. There was something that I had sold for 25 cents.
Mm-hmm.
We spent 3 hours discussing why I sold something for 25 cents.
My son likes to buy Magic the Gathering cards.
I love that.
He always looks up the value as if that's necessarily the best indicator. And he'll say, look, this one's from this series and this one's from this series. They're identical cards in identical conditions, but this one's worth 30 cents and this one's worth 45. And I said, under $1, they're all worth the same.
Yeah.
I said, I went to a local shop. They've got one listed online for 50 cents. And in the shop, he charged me $1. I said, buddy, I wouldn't sell you anything for $1. It's too much work.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that he sells anything for less than $5.
I know. My thoughts whenever I was playing was just like, it's worth the fun for me playing. That's it. That's what the value of those cards were for me.
So getting back to 2030.
Oh, yep.
Because we got well into it on the factory front, but there's more to the company. And
what? Tell us more, Brian.
I don't know if you are aware of this, but they do other things that have actual. Now, when we say it's 15 startups, a lot of those you would never, they'll never sell the company, so to speak. The seats, that is a company, but it's not. The chip design, unless they're going to start selling it, it's just hugely valuable to them, but it's not but you're going to sell mega packs. You're going to sell power walls. And I think by 2030, you're going to see that autonomy bump.
Oh, yeah.
And absolutely nobody that I've seen on Wall Street is assigning value for that. Now, the ARK model, ARK Invest, when they said Tesla's going to 20x and Tesla 20x'd, Cathie Wood was proud to take a lap as the all-time champ. But her model was still wrong. She was right for the wrong reason.
Yeah.
If I nailed how many cars are going to be this quarter to the exact one, but say it's all coming from Shanghai with 2 from Fremont, you can still call me an idiot. I could be a lucky idiot. But that's what Cathie was.
Yeah, she's the wrong.
But lucky.
She used the wrong formula, got the right answer.
Yeah,
it happens,
and that works once. It doesn't always work. She still is showing value. That number included autonomy,
right?
So we've got another run to expect if there is autonomy, because whoever cracks that's going to make a fortune. I can tell you I'd have to pull up the definitely not inside leaked information that I have on my email, but the number of power walls they're making per shift is outrageous. We don't really hear a lot about Powerwall because it doesn't make the news. People don't go out and show their friends when they get a Powerwall. They just install it.
Yeah.
Mega packs, you see, they're in the news. Most places when they get one announce it. Same with the semi. People announce, there we got some. But not so much with the Powerwall. So if it was a Powerwall company, would you invest? I probably would. A
I mean,
megapack
and look
company,
at Enphase. Enphase is awesome.
is it? I
Oh, yeah.
haven't looked. If it was a megapack company, would I invest? Absolutely. If it was a solar roof panel company, would you invest? I wouldn't, but I mean, whatever makes you happy, I guess.
Yeah.
But there are people who would and did. There are a lot of individual components of the company that are poised for tremendous growth. And the fact that they can design their own chips alone is massive.
Oh, yeah.
It is one of those feats that is impossible. So
Right.
my question for Dean is, how many of the things we just discussed do you feel are adequately priced in for the 8-year horizon? And if Dean is still in the chat, I'd love to actually see an answer from that. And I'll just sit here in silence until I get it.
And Dean, I have not updated my model in a couple of weeks, but I do have a price because I have fun with that kind of stuff. And my price target is 22.29, but I'm on the very conservative side. So as Brian said, most Wall Street analysts don't model in autonomy. I have it factored in there a little bit, but not anywhere near it could potentially grow to. So I do it very little. Gary Black is probably the closest, and even he doesn't really factor in autonomy. So that's that energy I've bumped up significantly, but nowhere near where it most likely could potentially get to as well. So I consider my numbers very conservative from an EV standpoint and strictly that. And I like to do it that way because once we get, energy, prove me with the numbers on energy that I can actually track out a decade, cool, I'll run those numbers. Show me that you've solved FSD and we've got autonomy on the road, cool, now I'll factor that in and I have numbers that I can add to it. But knowing, just like the internet, when you look at AI, when you look at autonomy, it's going to be something that completely changes the face of the world. And I don't know if you guys have seen some of these videos. I was just watching a couple with my friends back from the mid 90s. And it was, I can't remember if it was a NBC or whatever show it was, some daytime TV show, talking about when emails first came out. And they're like, what's that A with a circle around it? Around? I'm not sure what that means. And they had no idea.
Is it an
Like,
and symbol?
yeah, exactly. And just discussing the internet and what the implications were. And then there was like a bunch of students like from high school talking about what the internet was and, how important it's going to be in the future. And now look at where we are. We try to get away from the internet because it's everywhere.
Yeah. And
But that's what
yeah.
FSD and autonomy and AI are going to be.
Yeah. So Raymond did say that there's that Buffalo makes power walls, and actually power walls are being made in Nevada, and they are, as of last month, they're hoping to ramp by 10% every week until they get to 600 units per shift. And then there was an addendum to this email that I somehow missed that says two things of interest. One is that all the semis are going to Pepsi for now.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you about that. We'll get into that in a minute.
Okay. And the other is they're making a line for Optimus batteries.
Ooh.
Interesting.
Yes.
Now, these are not always reliable because even knowing what you know from inside, that doesn't mean you know what's actually happening. So interesting.
Very. So going to the semis, because you're kind of like my semi guy.
Okay.
We really haven't heard much, or at least I haven't heard much about what's going on with semis. Obviously, we know the release date. They had them back in December, this and that. But like, I haven't heard much about production. Haven't heard much about anybody else who's getting some, any more that have been delivered since then. Any true specs as far as like real production, not those pre-production ones that they had out back then. So where are we at with this? Do you know any information as to where we are currently?
Sure. So far there is one customer, and it's Pepsi. They're used for Frito-Lay and Pepsi. And the order is sufficiently large that no one else has gotten one.
Okay.
They're only going to the Modesto location so far because you have to build capacity around them for charging.
Right.
But the beauty of it is the routes are fixed, the routes are short, and the scheduling is daily rather than 24/7.
Okay.
So you've got time. It's a perfect use case for charging.
All right.
We do know that in terms of real world specs, Tesla Joy was able to box in a semi driver at a location and get some juice out of him. And what he was saying, basically, he said, I've gone this far and this is my state of charge. And based on that, they were able to extrapolate that, well, on this particular drive, you're going to get well over 500 miles of range.
Nice.
The trick is that the batteries are so large, close to a megawatt,
Damn.
that's like 12 cars worth of production.
Right.
You really want it. And those are still using the 2170s for now. They will be using 4680s eventually. So that's where Semi is at. They have not expanded beyond the original pilot line, which is at Giga Nevada, outside the security gate. If you look at Google Maps, there's a little, I don't remember what the name of it is, but it's just the address. It's the building where the unveiling happened or the delivery event took place. The expansion where they're going to be building these in high volume has not broken ground yet. So I don't know what the holdup there is. We never see drone footage out of there. So if any of you viewers are in Sparks, Nevada and have a drone, which I'm assuming is probably most of the audience, I am looking to hire someone.
Yeah, that's a big one because, we see it from everywhere else. And now, granted, like the Semi's not going to be nearly selling as many units as everything else, but it's going to be significant. And like you said, when it comes to the charging infrastructure, that needs to kind of grow. We don't see that from everywhere else. So Tesla's got to push that. And then the mega packs coming out of there, that's a big one too. So, to reiterate what Brian said there, if anybody is in that area and you've got drones that can get out there, you will be highly sought after for your
I'm
videos.
seeking you now.
Yes.
And same is true in Monterrey, Mexico. If you've got any contacts there, anybody, have them get in touch with me. I am hiring.
Just be careful if the drone gets shot down by the cartel.
Right. Make sure you point it in the correct direction. Oh, Raymond's got a few slightly damaged Chinese balloons to send me. That's funny. A stationary platform like that would be a good application.
Oh, yeah.
In Puerto
back to
Rico,
2030.
The Coast Guard has a balloons on tethers. They look like blimps, but they're just tethered. And they just run them up and leave them up in the air all day, scanning the sea for drugs or trafficking. Who knows?
Yeah, if you guys have a drone that's shaped like that balloon, I'm pretty sure it's not a good idea.
Probably not the best idea.
I love Raymond. Pepsi sold their semis a code for triple the price. Way to upsell.
Gosh.
Well done.
That would be funny.
Oh, man. Let me see. Yeah, we got a lot of Canadians in here tonight. Nice.
So one question I have for the viewers, and this is helpful, I hope this should drive the chat a little bit. What should I have for dinner?
Oh, yeah. I just had mine. I had my boring old salad with chicken, but it's helping me lose weight and get back into shape, so I'm good.
Into your bikini body. I gotcha.
Yes. I'm going from a dad bod to a father figure.
Oh, Tim. Well, I mean, you got the jokes down, so that's a good start.
Oh, man.
Kirav, I do like Indian food. My city doesn't have any.
What?
We've got 5 sushi places, 20 Mexican food places, 0 Indian food.
Oh, no way.
It is a very strange. It is one of the, when people ask how big is the town, I say we have everything except a Costco and Indian food because that's it.
That's so strange. Yeah, thanks, Karav. It's total dad jokes. I get it from my kid.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, my old roommates, they have this great place, Bangon, that we go to. Oh man, they're awesome there. We love it. Let's see what else we got going on today.
We only have one barbecue place, but we have 3 Taco Bells.
That's like when you live in a small town, like
5 Starbucks, maybe.
See, when I was married, we had 2 street lights and 4 liquor stores.
Wow.
Like why? Oh man.
Sri Lankan food. Well, we don't have that either, but I'm not sure I know what that is.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever had Sri Lankan. I love food from all over the place. I've gone to Iceland, had the food up there. I love international cuisine. Oh man, I love trying stuff from everywhere. There you go. And just came back from Indian. We'll have to get some for Brian next time. We'll share some. Maybe he can like 3D print it or something on his end.
Do a $400 Uber Eats delivery charge to get it from Vancouver.
So send it over with the drone that's flying over Nevada.
That's a great idea. Make it happen.
So looking at the Fed here. Now, you worked in the bank, so you can have. I know monetary policy is totally different than what's going on with the bank, but at least you have a little bit of insights there as to what's going on. So it sounds like the Fed is looking at pausing now. That's based upon what they said yesterday. Sounds like we got our rate hike, and then May is the next FOMC meeting, and we'll see a pause. Do you think they're really going to pause?
Yeah. But I think that everything that happens between now and then is going to be the actual determining factor.
Okay.
Because we've got, it's a month and a half, 2 months. So if employment had come in weaker, the pause might have started already.
Yeah.
But the unemployment is still incredibly low. And I had a revelation the other day. Do you remember those people saying nobody wants to work anymore?
Yep.
It's true, but for the wrong reason. The people who stopped working are the baby boomers. They've finally started retiring at rates of about 300,000 people a month.
Wow.
So when you hang out a sign that says, I need someone to scoop ice cream, and no one applies, well, the boomers were never applying for that job. Younger people were.
Right.
Guess who took their job at the office? Guess who's making 60, 70,000 now that Harold has retired? The younger people are finally getting the jobs they always should have had. And now there's no one left on that bottom rung to scoop yo ice cream.
That's true.
Yeah. Our state minimum wage is almost $16 an hour in Washington. Do you know what kind of service you get everywhere you go? Very good service. You get people who don't seem dead inside everywhere. At the dollar store, at the fast food place, at the mom and pop shop, because that's 15, 16 bucks an hour. You can do a lot with your life.
Yeah, you can enjoy it. You can actually pay your bills.
And there will still be people complaining, well, I can't afford an apartment by myself that's as big as I want in the city I want on minimum wage. Well, no. It wasn't until I was making six figures that I could actually buy a house, that I could actually afford to live, not even buy. I couldn't afford to buy at six figures within walking distance of my office. I was still renting. And because, six figures downtown ain't as much, even in the 90s. So, but you can, a couple in Washington State at minimum wage is making a combined total of 30 bucks an hour. That's 60 grand household for 2 minimum wage jobs. Why would I become a supervisor for 17 if I can be a burger flipper for 15?
Right.
Do you want to flip burgers? I mean, some people do. Some people find it nice to be able to clock out, shut off your brain, and not think about work until you come back.
Yeah. And as Marty says here, Tesla bot will scoop happily,
Yeah.
And again, that's what we're going towards here. And one of the things, and for you guys who maybe haven't seen it, a huge thing in Congress about TikTok and banning TikTok in the US. Now, one of the things to think about, Brian and I know as content creators, the revenue stream coming in, it fluctuates wildly. However, for a younger kid, 18, 19, 20 years old, what do you have for bills? You don't have big bills to pay. So if you're pulling in a few $100s a month, that's significant. You're like, well, why would I go scoop ice cream if I can do this with a ton of free time, and then I could just do more and make even more money?
Is TikTok directly monetized, or is it all influencing?
As far as I know, it's directly monetized, very much like Facebook and Instagram in its own way. So you'll get paid directly from them, but the payout is significantly less. So from what I've heard numbers wise, like Instagram, Facebook may pay you for like $1 per 1,000 views or something like that, whereas TikTok will pay you like 7 cents.
Whoa.
Right. But when you're looking at view count and you've got the Chinese and you've got 2.5 billion of them over there, the view count can be significantly higher because there's so many more users over there.
Is Asia heavily populated? I haven't followed the recent news.
I think there's a couple of them. There's a few.
The
Um,
YouTube Shorts are terrible that way too, by the way. I've done
yes.
2. You remember, you saw one of them at least.
Yeah, mine are paying 7 cents a thousand views.
Yeah, I don't. Oh, I'm not getting anywhere close to that. I don't think. I don't know. For both of them, one of them I think I made a penny,
Nice.
and the other one I made half a penny. It literally says 0.005.
See, like I had started putting up some up there that were random and it screwed up the YouTube algorithm, but I was putting up ones of my son because I was comparing his driving to FSD. Those were doing relatively well. People liked it because it was that nice comparison. Unfortunately, my son was getting picked on by his friends and told me to stop, so I stopped.
Oh, that's terrible. That's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
I mean, and it was all in fun, but he was like typical teenage kid. Just dad, just don't. I'm like, all right, fine. So
My kids, before the pandemic, had started a channel where it was a variety show. It was fun. It was like Good Mythical Morning, but with kids. And I said, if you guys really want to do this, I'll do the production for you. So they would come up with ideas, and I would shoot them. And I'd have the 3 cameras set up, and I'd have the lighting and all that. And the sound it was beautiful. And then I would put in hours and hours and hours editing, and then they wouldn't tell their friends because my voice sounds funny. Guys, you're killing me. You're absolutely killing me. And the videos, great. They were so much fun.
Oh yeah. And so now going back to the TikTok thing, if we've got TikTok now getting banned and all of these people now all of a sudden not being in work, and now I also don't know, I don't know if you know, Brian, when it comes to employment, is something like that, like being a content creator, considered being employed?
Yes, because you're not looking for work. If the jobless numbers count people who are engaged in the active pursuit of work.
Okay. All right. So, and when I thought about it too, when we came out of COVID and there were so many places out there that were just dying for help and trying to find someone, and they said they couldn't find anybody, I thought about the fact that, well, for 2 years, you basically forced everybody into their homes. They were bored out of their minds. A lot of them became content creators and started making money. And a lot of them were like, well, why would I go back to my job when I'm making more money at home doing this? And so that kind of swept a lot of people out of the job force. So going back to that ice cream scooping type of job, why would you do that when you have an income source elsewhere? And I think that's what caused a lot of this discrepancy between inflation and people who are still going out and spending money and unemployment, because unemployment's still low, but there's a lot of people who are still looking for employed people. They want people to come in and work, and they've got that discrepancy. And I think a lot of it may have come down to just that. People are working online or content creation or whatever.
And there were a lot of people also who had been paying for daycare. And daycare is outrageously expensive. You could easily spend $1,000 a month per child.
Oh, yeah.
If you got 2 kids, it very quickly makes sense to stay home.
Yeah,
and
I've known
where
a lot of my friends. Yeah, a lot of my friends
one
did
of
the
them
same
would stay
thing.
home with the kid during COVID and realized we're getting by just fine on this amount of money. We're not spending as much money going out to eat because we're exhausted. We're actually we're enjoying our lives more. Why don't we just do this? And yeah, that's
exactly. And I had a lot of friends who, even before COVID, because it's so expensive, they're like, well, like the mom, it's usually the mom because the dad was working while the mom was staying home with the kids, going through their maternity leave. And then they're like, well, if we go back to work, some people are lucky enough to have family close by that will watch the kids. I'm grateful that my ex-mother-in-law was there. She was always there to watch our son, so we didn't have to worry about daycare and that expense. I'm like, but not everybody has that. A lot of people don't. And so they had to make the choice of, well, does mom go back to work? And a lot of my good friends looked and they did the math and they said, well, if she goes back to work, they're actually going to make less money. And it's like, well, why would they do that? Why would they have somebody else raise their kids for them to bring in less money? It just makes no sense.
Yeah.
So it forced them to stay home. And of course, then, now they're struggling with their bills either way, but at least now mom is home with the kids.
And yeah, and that's the one job in the world that only you can do the best, is raise your own children.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are a number of exceptions to that. Now, you and I are of close enough age. I assume you were, like me, a free-range child. Daycare? What are you talking about? Who does that?
The backyard is daycare.
Yeah. The older siblings are daycare.
Yeah.
As long as you could get the oldest one in charge, you were fine.
Yeah, and the only time we ever had babysitters, like, parents' night, they needed a night out to get away from the kids. So you call the older neighborhood kids over here. You pay them $2-3 an hour per kid. Here you go. You watch our kids for 3-4 hours, enjoy, and that's it.
What I was paid. I was paid about $2 an hour to be a babysitter.
Yeah.
Of some children who were quite a bit of work. There's a boy, Davey, was Down syndrome, and I would babysit him for, I want to say, $1.75 an hour.
Wow.
And I was not thrilled about that because I did not negotiate that. My parents did and said, congratulations, you got a job. And that, my friend, was a lot of work. Very sweet boy, but unfortunately he had the medical conditions that are common to Down syndrome, and he suffered heart failure at 11.
Oh, man.
Very tragic.
That's tough, yeah.
Yeah, so I just wanted to bring the show back down.
No.
Sorry, everybody.
Well, so now one of my good friends, he's a personal trainer, and he works with a lot of special needs people. And I didn't even realize that we watch this local TV news every single morning at work just because that's the default channel it goes on. I didn't realize he was on there. How I missed it, I don't know. But like, it was awesome seeing the whole group of them out there working out. They were all doing Zumba in their own way. I was like, you guys have at it. It was awesome. I loved it.
That is fun. It's, with the young ones, it's very challenging. With kids in general, it's challenging.
Oh, yeah.
In our neighborhood, we had a neighbor lady who didn't work, and her husband had some kind of clerical white collar job, and she was just the neighborhood babysitting lady. And so she probably I think it was only a short time when there were no other older siblings of mine around. And yeah, I assume she was quite affordable because she was doing it for fun. But yeah, there were also in terms of the job shortage, retirement isn't a date in the US, it's a window. Mm-hmm. And for some folks, that window starts younger and stretches longer than others. There were a lot of people who, when COVID came about, said, yeah, I'm done. Yeah. Why not now? I've been putting it off. Why not now? Do I really want to put on a mask and go back? And I don't blame them. If you have the ability to retire, make that decision.
Yeah. And you're so true. Like, they say the retirement age is 67, but realistically, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of them are millennials. Like, what do I need to survive and not actually have to have a real full-time job like everybody thinks we should have? Right. And that's a mentality that a lot of people have. I even have that mentality now. I'm doing the math on, well, how much money do I need? What exactly is it that I need to have to be able to go live the van life that I want to live?
Right.
So for me, if I can be retired by 45, I mean, that would be awesome. And of course, that's 22 years ahead of what most people anticipate working until. And unfortunately, there's some fields out there that if people don't plan properly, you're working until you're dead. And that's the end of that.
Yeah.
So
my mom retired and immediately discovered, boy, I can't sit still. And so she would get calls from work saying, please come back. We need you. She was good at, she worked at a hospital, and she was good at dealing with insurance companies and clients and figuring out solving puzzles. And as you know, in medical, solving puzzles is very profitable.
Oh, yeah.
So her deal was, she said, I will come back, but boy, my terms are going to be real specific. I require very high pay, and I require extreme amounts of vacation because I am retired.
Oh, yeah.
And so what she would do is all the money she made, she'd spend on lavish trips.
Nice. Good for her.
Because this is money I wasn't going to have and a trip I wasn't going to take.
Yeah. I already had my plan set. So
yeah. So I don't hate my job, and I get to take crazy vacations.
Yep. It's perfect. Love being in that situation. Yeah. All right. Let's swing it back over to vehicles here. We got Dear William. Hi, guys. What do you guys think of Fisker? Do you think it will do well?
No, I think they're doomed. I think they're in a worse position than Rivian or Lucid, and I think Rivian and Lucid are both tenuous at best. Fisker makes truly beautiful cars, but Henrik Fisker is not someone I would trust with my investment money. And I don't see the vehicles making it to production at volume profitably. And the model they're trying to do is the Tesla model. Start right at the top of the market, work down. That worked 15 years ago. I don't think it's going to work again. The top of the market is saturated with electric cars.
But hasn't Fisker been trying to make vehicles since 2012 as well? I thought they've been around for a while.
Yeah, they stole the design for the Model 3. They literally stole the design.
Nice.
If you look at it, it looks like a sexier Model 3 or Model S, I mean. And that was what the original sketches of the Model S were, and they made a hybrid. And I did a review of a Fisker. I don't know if they had Fisker on the badging, but it was a Karma was the model. It's a beautiful car, but it's got all kinds of weird quirks that you would expect from a limited production vehicle. I don't know. I don't think they're gonna make it. I hope they do. The vehicles are beautiful. The design is interesting and smart. But I
think what we're going to run into with a lot of these EV startups is similar to the .com bubble. Not to say that there's companies out there that are just shells like a Nikola, but I think we're going to end up having a lot of companies that are startups and just kind of started up at the wrong time. And not anything to do with them. It's just timing wise with the market. I think we are going to get into some ugly economic times, and anybody who cannot get through it financially is going to either get swallowed up by someone else, could be bought out, could be like one of those Ford needs a saving grace. They're going to go out and buy a Fisker. Then like, hey, we've now merged with them. I think that's going to end up what we see probably in 2024 is we may see a bunch of that going on. Yeah, and Fisker may be one of the ones that gets scooped up.
See, it's tough. It used to be for a lot of industries that as players would fall, you would just pick up their pieces. But in a lot of these cases, you don't want the pieces. People say, Tesla should buy Arcimoto now that it's basically free. And the answer is, no, they shouldn't. Arcimoto doesn't have their special sauce, doesn't translate to any new competency for Tesla. And I'll tell you, the work philosophy at the two companies could not be more different. Eugene is a laid-back town. I can tell you that the people I saw behind the scenes on the day of Arcimoto's Ramp It Up event were less intense and focused than Tesla employees are on a normal day.
Wow.
So I was going to say that's fine because it works for them, but it doesn't work for them. I don't know. I kept one share when I finally sold out, and now it's worth, I think, a fifth of a share because they did a reverse merger.
Oh, yeah.
Or a reverse split.
Yeah.
And boy, after I went down and saw the factory, I made a video saying why the stock was not a buy. And boy, did I get a lot of hate mail about how dare you? Have you even seen the product? I said, who's in the video, smart guy? Watch my video.
I haven't seen the product. I've seen the production.
Yeah, I've been to the factory. I have talked to people turning wrenches. And I can tell you at the time, the stock was not a buy. And it was probably at $14 a share. And now it's probably 14 cents a share, maybe $1. But it's got to be less than $1. It's bad. It's real bad.
Yeah. And to your point, it comes down to the culture. And that's one of the things that I spoke with Farzad about, because I was like, this is before they announced Mexico. This is probably back in October. And we're like, you know what? They could come out with maybe 5 or 6 factories in the next few years. It'd be awesome. But he pointed out the fact that the one thing that you don't want to lose is the culture. And if you open up that many factories that fast, you can very easily lose that culture, and you don't want to do that.
That's a good point.
So by merging with another company, trying to integrate that culture into that new staff is going to be very difficult. You almost have to clean house, similar to what Elon did with Twitter. And why would you do that when Arcimoto does have a compelling product for a very niche market, but Tesla would just be like, all right, well, we'll just do it our way. And it would be better for them to just create their own. Yeah.
The only reason they would buy it is to get some of the patents on tilting, which
right.
Arcimoto did. They bought a company to get those. And I think they paid stock. So, yeah.
Nobody won in that deal.
Oh, is that the one we already?
Let's see.
Raymond wanted to know why not Boston Dynamics? And the answer is Boston Dynamics has gone too far down the wrong road. It'd be like Tesla buying a internal combustion engine company to try and improve their competencies in EVs. And Boston Dynamics, if you'll recall, made gas-powered robots. The big dog had a big motor, and it was loud. That's why the videos were always silent. I think Boston Dynamics had a bit of a wake-up call. And aren't they owned by Hyundai now, I think? I think they are. Somebody can check in the chat.
Yeah.
I think Boston Dynamics had a wake-up call because there's a lot of things, why would a car company have any proficiency in bots? And then we saw the bot day, and we got to see they use crash test software to design it before it falls over. I guarantee you Boston Dynamics did it by trial and error. They've definitely over-designed parts of it to try and make it so that they can, because they don't know where it's supposed to be. They don't know where the strengths need to be. So just overbuild it. And by the way, now the dog costs $50,000. That's not sustainable. You can't do that.
No. And I mean, one of the things that you always have to look at too is it a scalable product? And, sure, if the dog costs $50,000 and you can scale it, maybe you can bring it down to 20 to 25,000, but is it scalable? And
Right.
that's really what the big question is.
Yeah.
Let me see what else we have up here. Yeah, Fisker. I mean, there's so many other companies out there too. Like the Rivians and Lucids are probably the two biggest startups that might get by strictly because they have support. But how long are the Saudis going to actually support Lucid before they decide, nah, we're good? We've already got Elon reaching out to the Saudis for some financial support for SpaceX. Maybe they decide. What
is he? I didn't know that.
This is just what I heard. Again, take that as with a grain of salt. I just happened to see that on Twitter earlier today. But if that's the case, maybe the Saudis are going to be like, you know what? Maybe we decided we want to invest in Tesla instead, and we're not going to be, owners like we were with Lucid, but we'll have a good chunk of Tesla stock and we'll go with that. And then Lucid no longer has that financial backing. We've already seen Amazon deciding that when it comes to Rivian, they're going to stick with that $10,000, which is the lowest end of their deal that they had to get those 10,000 vehicles. And now they're no longer going to be exclusive, and they're going to go out and seek other places. We know that Tesla's coming out with a highly configurable van, not confirmed, but it's been teased enough to know that it's coming. That could be something. Maybe we end up seeing Tesla vans out there driven by Amazon.
There are quite a few Amazon Rivian delivery vans in the Portland metro. Nice. But being, I'm at the perfect distance to not ever see one, because if they drove here to do deliveries, they would need to charge before they go back.
Oh, okay.
So I haven't seen one, but at the EVs and caffeine event that I went to last weekend, I talked to a number of people who had seen them. And it was a very interesting event. It was very small. There were 8 of us, and 2 of them came just to meet me because I was the only one really pushing the event.
Oh, that's amazing. That's cool.
It was fun. It was people who I'd known either online, or subscribers on my channel or on Twitter. It was kind of fun.
Oh, yeah. Raymond, didn't Tesla buy a robotics company a few years ago? Oh, they just made one. They didn't buy one. They made one.
Yeah, that's my understanding. Oh, you know what? You might be thinking Groman Automation, which makes which makes assembly robots. So that is correct.
Yes. Different robot, not Optimus. These are factory
not
robots.
Not humanoid. Yeah. These are robotic arms.
Yes. So now I have a question. I don't know if you heard about it. Remember a while back we heard about Idra sending a 9,000-ton Giga Press over to Asia, but nobody knew where it was going. People, of course, assumed it was Tesla, but we haven't heard anything about that. But then we also heard rumors that there was a lot of other Chinese manufacturers that were looking at getting a Giga Press. Do you happen to know where that one landed?
No, we don't. In the U.S., bills of lading become public record. So we know that there is now a 9,000-ton press in Houston awaiting delivery to Tesla.
Yeah.
When that is in and running, we can start production of the Cybertruck, which, by the way, considering we're at the end of Q1 here, I don't think we're going to see any volume in Q2.
No, I was I was guessing, I was guessing Q3. Is July was my always original start date for production, not volume production, but start date for production. We'd see the first ones rolling off the line in July.
Okay. You're more realistic than me by a month. I was thinking we would see some in June, and I now believe that that is not going to happen. So I don't know where the Asian one went. I also believed it was Tesla, and I shared this on a show and got quite a bit of pushback from Herbert on it because he said, no, you're reading too much into it. The color was painted Tesla red.
I remember having that conversation too, yeah.
And Giga presses are blue. That's where it was. It was at our live event in Texas where we discussed this. Giga presses are blue. And when I said that, two people in the crowd were like, yeah, they're blue. Because, hey, man, if you come to my event in Texas on a weekday in the middle of the day, you are dialed in on Tesla stuff.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah, these are the fans of the fans.
Yeah. That was one of the first things that I learned as a content creator when I just started to get into Tesla was you guys know your stuff. And if you don't know your stuff as a content creator, you better learn real fast.
Sure.
You're going to get educated by those who know.
Well, imagine if you had a cooking channel and the only people who watched your channel were cooks.
Yeah. Oh my God, you're so right.
And that's what
analogy.
Tesla is like. It's a unique space in that regard.
Oh yeah. And everybody has their own, and that's the great thing too, is it's not just everybody's coming out with this random stuff. They're like, we have done our research. This is our belief on this. This is what we have seen. And you can actually have good conversations with people about it. I'm like, you guys are awesome.
Yeah. I had a viewer ask me, how come you almost never talk about Tesla on your weekly podcast with Bear? And I said, Tesla, and of course, when I gave this answer, my Nicola viewer lost. He's like, he's always talking about, right, but I don't bring Tesla headlines. Bear brings Tesla headlines. If he sees one he wants me to discuss, we'll discuss it. The reason is my viewers know all the Tesla news before I could ever put out a weekly show.
Oh yeah.
So why would I? So instead we cover Audi and Volkswagen and Polestar and charging and wind and batteries, but very little Tesla chat because you guys already know that stuff.
Oh yeah. That was like when I was doing switching over videos and I was trying to do, like I see how Rob is doing it one a day. And I was like, okay, getting all the information for the day, you could put it out. Doing 2 a day, there was enough information for the most part to do 2 videos a day for me. But like, if I wasn't catching up to people's comments, and that's why I love in these live streams, because I can talk with you guys live here versus I put out a video at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I catch your comments in the morning. News has already changed. I'm now discussing with you guys old news. It was a waste of time. Like, I still love chatting with you guys in those comments, but this is so much more live and realistic because everything is moving so quickly out there.
So just so we know, so I can get this as a quote, that your channel is a waste of time? Did I hear that right? No. My videos are a waste of time.
No. What I was alluding to
was format.
The format and the responding to comments 7 and 8 hours after a video was posted was a waste of time. It was good to connect with everyone, but by the time we had those conversations, it's like, oh yeah, great. We already got the answer to that 3 hours ago. So it was kind of like moot conversations that just weren't as good. And as Marty puts here, like, I love sharing with you guys. I love the fact that you guys watched all the daily stuff as well and came to me for that. And we've got Dylan and Rob who are awesome. Rob obviously is one of the originals out there, putting out just the daily news. Like, if you're looking for what's the daily news for Tesla, Rob's one of the best places to go. He's a guy I watch all the time regularly myself. Yeah,
I'm certainly jealous. It'd be amazing if I could get away with just reading the news. But my viewers, maybe they would. Maybe I could do that. But my viewers tend to expect analysis and unique angles on things. They expect me to take the same things that a lot of people know and find the interesting part, like how I figured the fact that the design is locked for the compact. I was able to piece that together from a event where they definitely did not announce that vehicle was even being made.
Oh yeah,
we had to figure that out.
Yeah.
It's very
And the insights are great, and that's one of the things I love too, is like piecing these puzzles together. And that's why I think there's so many good content creators out there, is because there's so many ways to interpret this puzzle that we're seeing come together. And we all do it in our own way, and we connect with so many of you guys, and there's so many of you out there. It's great. And you guys go to so many of us for these different reasons. And again, we love all of you guys, and we appreciate all of your support. And if you guys aren't supporting Brian already, definitely go over there and subscribe to his channel, My Tesla Weekend.
Yeah, I'd appreciate that. I put in a little bit of work on it. Yesterday, I did something that was a bit of a departure. It didn't get very many views because it's not my viewers' thing, but I was invited to the Google Bard demo.
Oh, so was I. Awesome.
So I put it up side by side against GPT 3.5, and it was fun to see. It's always fun to see the failures. And what was crazy was,
a
lot of the tests that I had done in the morning on Bard, it handled differently in the afternoon, which suggests it is changing very quickly.
Ooh.
And some of them were better and some of them were so much worse. It was breathtaking. My favorite one was, I asked it, who's Tesla Herbert? Because it's got a data set new enough to, and in the morning it said, oh, here's his YouTube channel and here's who he is. And in the afternoon it said, that's a fictional person. I don't know.
We'll have to tell Herbert that he's fictional now.
Well, so then I said, okay, now let's search me, because I'll be in there. And it said, oh, My Tesla Weekend is run by Herbert. And I'm like, and then it gives all of Herbert's actual credentials. So I asked ChatGPT, and it said, oh no, My Tesla Weekend, that's run by a couple named Alex and Amanda, and they have 40,000 subscribers. And I said, wow, you've got absolutely everything wrong. That's amazing. In the morning, Bard had said that I was a former analyst for Wedbush and that I had 10 years experience as an investment advisor. I don't remember.
It's
analyst
awesome.
Or something.
Good for you.
So I was very impressed. I was hoping that was my resume, but it turned out, hey.
And for you guys who don't know, Brian, unlike his kids, actually doesn't mind the sound of his voice. So he will put the videos out there for you to watch.
I do put out, if you count guest appearances, I'm at 34 in March so far.
Wow. Dang.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
My Tesla Weekend, never heard of it. Well, I hope that's not true, but it would not surprise me. They're getting less common, but probably every other week I still get a comment saying, I just discovered your channel and I already follow all things Tesla, so I don't know how I missed it.
Oh, I get that all the time too. Yeah.
But there are channels that I'm still just discovering, and I also follow it.
There's a few that there's some out there that like people are like, oh, do you know this guy? And I was like, no, are they new? And they have like 80,000 subscribers. I'm like, holy cow, how did I not know?
Yeah. Run my name.
Honey, we love you too. Oh, thank you, Gavin. I appreciate that. Yeah, I try to, spice it up my own way.
Boy,
that's the weekend. Never heard of it. There it is.
Galveston County Mike's got a good question.
Please run Brian's name and YouTube channel again, just a little slower for the hearing impaired. My Tesla Weekend is his channel. I will put it in.
I had the logo, but
and when we're done, I'll put it in the description down below as well for you guys to click on.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Hopefully I get some traction. I'm going to be a special guest in June 16th and 17th. I'm going to be in Michigan.
Ooh. What are you doing out there?
There's a Tesla event that has invited me. The Michigan Owners Club is putting on an event. Cool. I got to meet Kelly and her husband Bert, who are representatives of the club at TeslaCon in Florida, and they were just so much fun. They kind of adopted me for the weekend, drove me around and stuff.
That's awesome. That's good times. Yeah, and I'm looking forward. I know I've gotten a lot of invites from you guys as subscribers for when I come around, and I'm driving my van, so I'll definitely be visiting all of you when I go out there.
Can't wait. It is going to be a whole new 2/3 of your channel, I think, will be the adventure.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And you were saying how you have to look at the cost. Well, so you no longer have a traditional housing cost. If you want to put stuff in storage, that's a fraction of rent. And then, your transportation and accommodation become one cost.
Yep. I did the math on it, and worst case, if I'm driving an ICE van at first, $2,500 a month at the worst is going to be what it's at.
For
I'm like,
sure.
dang. And so then of course when I get Tesla, that's what it's going to be big. When Tesla comes out with their van and I'm driving that around, channel's going to be huge because I'll be able to show everybody what the van can do, what the functionality is, where I'm going, and really kind of show a lot of the times, like we see with FSD and everything out there, what are the capabilities of the vehicle? What can it do? That to me is going to be the important part.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Eric, let's see. Brothers, what are your expectations for the refreshed Model 3 long range? When? What? What do you know about it, Brian?
No more than anyone else, but I do believe all the rumors. I believe it will be updated to have a structural battery pack, a front and rear casting, and probably not much more than just a new bumper, just a very superficial facelift would be my guess. Because what they saw is when they did a more significant refresh of the Model S, it took a lot longer to get the line back running than they expected.
Yeah.
So I don't think they want to do that again.
No, even Elon himself said that if he could go back in time, he wouldn't have done it that way.
Who said that?
Elon.
About the refresh?
Yeah. The S and the X. He's like, if we could have gone back and not taken the lines down like we did to do what we did, we wouldn't have done it.
Yeah, because that was a mess. And when they said, "Oh, it's going to be back up in 2 weeks," I knew that was a wishful thinking.
Yeah,
but I didn't know it was going to be a year, and obviously neither did they. That was a disaster. But it's very hard to, as Elon says, change the tire while you're still on the highway.
Yeah.
But it doesn't mean it's impossible. I've actually seen at a car collection place, at the LeMay Family Collection, not the LeMay Car Museum, but the other LeMay Car Museum run by the same family in the same town. There's a Cadillac that this engineer designed that can be driven continuously. You can get out and do engine maintenance while it's running. Just the hood will clear out of the way. And it's got hydraulics on each wheel. So you can literally jack up a wheel, change the tire while you're driving, and then lower it back down, and you're still
awesome.
going. It's got high voltage in the car for if you want to run a coffee pot or an iron. And the guy spent in the 50s, probably, I forget, an outright, probably like $40,000 building it.
Of course, is that product a scalable product? No,
it is not. But he then drove all over the Western Hemisphere, showing it off and doing shows. And I assume he did it for the love more than the money, but he did make some money.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so, the Model 3 refresh, do you think that's going to be the Project Highland? Is that what?
Yeah. I mean, I assume that's.
Oh, yeah.
I assume that's what it is.
Yeah.
I do. Yeah. I have someone I can check with to see if there's any unusual parts being ordered in large numbers.
Yeah. And I'm wondering, because I would imagine when they do that, then they're going to end up having hardware 4 in it as well. So that'll be all part of it. So, yeah.
Because with the design of the Model 3 currently, it looks like, at least for an SR Plus or Performance, it may cost more to build a 3 than a Y. And you can't sell them for as much.
Right.
So it's a less profitable vehicle.
Plus, and now with Tesla pushing out significantly more Ys than 3s, taking down the Model 3 line for a shorter amount of time, even if it's just one of the lines that you've got going, it's not going to be as big of an impact because you're selling more of the Y. Obviously, taking down S and X wasn't as bad because there was a smaller volume, but it was still a huge hit for a longer period of time, which sucked. But if they can work this out and really squeak it out in like a 2 to 3 week refresh to get it out there, I think that'd be totally viable and they'd be in good shape.
I don't know how many Model 3 lines there are in Fremont. If there's 2, you can take one down. But if there's only one, boy, that's scary, man.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you if you knew how many lines are out there. If you guys know how many Model 3 lines are out in Fremont, let us know.
Because there's, I think, 4 or 5 general assembly lines. And I assume it goes YY, 3, S and X, unknown. So maybe there is. But I think there's more Model Y production capacity, which would tell me there might only be 4 assembly lines. And it goes YY, 3, S and X.
Okay, that would make sense because S and X together really only need one line anyway.
Correct. correct. And they're, I guess, similar enough that running them on one line is not crazy. I've seen pictures from, I want to say it's where the Audi RS, whatever, the super sporty Audi is built. It's the same production line that builds other extremely high-end Volkswagen Group products. And it's crazy because you'll see quite the hodgepodge of supercars on one assembly line.
Just imagine like going through that factory. That's going to be wild.
Yeah. I can't wait.
Do you know anything about this, Brian? Any insight on the IRA April 1st update that reduced the Model 3 tax rebate due to the imported batteries?
So my update is the same as everyone else's, which is the IRS doesn't even know what they're about to announce. The rumor is that that Tesla would lose the credit. But if Tesla loses the credit, everyone loses. If you follow the strictest interpretation, the batteries and the minerals in them have to be domestically sourced. That rules out every car from every manufacturer except the 3 and Y long range and performance models, because those batteries come from Nevada. But the minerals, I'm not sure if those come from. I don't know where they come from.
Yeah.
So it could be, by the strictest definition, all cars are disqualified on April 1st. And I don't believe that that was the Treasury's intention. And I believe they will issue clarifying language to at least extend the transition. It would make sense, at least do partial credits, do credit for the manufacturing, but not the battery partial. I don't know. But it's becoming a mess and they kind of need to sort it out.
Oh, yeah. And like looking at it, obviously some people are thinking that this is a bailout for legacy auto. And I won't disagree entirely on that, which is why they were starting to work in, you almost kind of look at it and look at all the decisions they're making, how long it's taking them to make these decisions. And you're like, well, why is it so complicated? And to me, it almost feels like, well, they're trying to find this loophole, how they can exclude Tesla, but still keep legacy auto in there. And there's no way they can do it because Tesla is the most American made car and they have the most everything. So that's why they had thrown in unions, because that's the only thing that really separates the legacy auto and Tesla is the unions. Any way else, Tesla still has the most American everything that's out there. And nobody else can compete with them. So,
are you trying to tell me that Tesla's cars are more American than Ford's Mach-E? Yeah. Did you see that Ford, for the first time, has broken out their financials for their electric division?
Yeah, I didn't dive into them. I saw that they're making negative $22,000 per EV that they put out. But they do anticipate being profitable soon. I don't know what magic they're going to make happen on this. Like, did they? And I haven't gone into it. Did they explain how they were going to get profitable?
Yeah, volume.
Okay, that's the only thing I could think of was volume.
Yeah, they're losing. They lost $2 billion last year, which is startup kind of losing money,
right?
They're basically an electric car startup, but their backers are themselves.
Right. And the backers are their ICE fleet, which is also losing market share.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I just loved it. And you saw this for 10 years, 15, since the beginning. When the big guys decide to compete, Tesla is going to be left in the dust. Because they can just flip a switch. They've got the factories. They've got the engineers. Right. They've got the wrong factories. And they've got the wrong engineers. And they've discovered how incredibly difficult it is to actually do this.
Wait, so you're telling me that they can't just say, hey, these robots that made ICE vehicles are now going to make EVs. And hey, you, instead of making an ICE vehicle, you person on the factory line, you're going to make an EV today? It doesn't work that way?
It doesn't sound crazy, right? Why is it? I mean, if we switch from unleaded to diesel, that's the same factory, but it's a completely different thing. But the software is a problem. It requires good software. And apparently just changing the supply chain is hard enough, but the factories are completely different. So it's going to be real tough to see. They expect to lose $3 billion this year. And if people say, well, Ford is making really good cars at a really good price. They're pricing them not at what they cost, but at what they think they should be priced. These are speculative prices. These are market prices.
Oh, yeah.
If they tried to sell the Mach-E for what it actually costs them, go ahead, slap 20, 25 grand onto that sticker price and tell me. And they would still have to go up higher because that's still no margin. So go ahead, sell it for another 30, 35,000.
Oh, yeah. And then if we get into a recession next year, good luck selling any at all.
Oh, yeah.
And good luck making any money on them, even with volume.
Yeah. I believe there were people who asked me my opinion of the IRA when it first came out. And I said, they said, well, Tesla's originally the Model Y had limitations on it. And they said, they're singling out Tesla. You know, the stupidity was universal. It affected Volkswagen. It affected Ford. It affected everybody.
Yeah, I noticed that too. Yeah, it hit everybody. It's just like, oh, all right. So they're not targeting Tesla.
I'm not going to say that they didn't try to.
Yes.
The early drafts of it really tried to single Tesla out.
Oh, yeah.
But you can't put a labor stipulation into an internationally binding contract. It doesn't work that way. It would have been thrown out in court. It never would have been enforceable. And the Mach-E isn't even made in a U.S. factory. There's no UAW in Mexico. So the way it was written may have been designed to help Detroit and hurt others. But there's just nothing. You can't design there were times when you would place an order for something that was so specific you could only get it from one vendor. And that's how you would show preference to that one vendor. There's nothing you can say that is specific enough that it only applies to Ford or GM. You could say, well, it has to have a certain range. That's not going to help.
Well, the company's name can't start with a T.
Right. So.
Unbelievable. All right, Hanif, what you got here? Where's the next Gigafactory going to be built? Canada? No.
Canada was very high on my list of candidate countries for a bunch of reasons. They already make cars. They're very good at it. They have great engineers. They have a culture that is sufficiently different from the U.S. that a lot of their engineers would not be interested in moving to the U.S. Many of them speak French. They are still high on my list of candidate countries, but I think Mexico rules them out because that would be there will already be 3 car factories, 4 if you count Nevada. A 5th one in North America seems unlikely to me, but can't rule it out. Don't build in Canada. Too many rules.
Yeah. And so for me, and we talked about it the other night, is looking at China being the only one in the Asia region. And yes, China did get that expansion going. So now they're looking to bump up to 1.2 million over there, which is obviously going to surpass that as well. But if that's going to be the expansion there, they're going to need a factory in another country over there just to diversify. Elon's already said it himself that it's smarter to do that for logistics purposes, for everything. And then not only that, but if China right now is pumping out left and right wheel drive cars, if they can focus China on just left side drive cars, and then you can have Indonesia or whoever else over there do just the right wheel drive, it would make a lot more sense for efficiency purposes. So I think we're going to see an Asia factory coming.
I really do too. I really think it'll be an Asian factory. I like Japan because it's left-hand drive. There are other left-hand drive countries. Thailand is left-hand drive. They've got significant experience with automotive. There's some great candidates in the area.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so I'm pretty sure somewhere in the Asia-Pacific region we'll hear about it. And obviously, we've already heard South Korea and Indonesia really touting for it. So it'll be fun to see for sure.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we got here. Argentina makes the lithium. All right.
Well, I don't know if it does it for Nevada. Do we know that it does? Yeah, they're a very big lithium producer, but lithium comes from all over the world. And I'm not sure where anybody's specific. I don't know that answer. If Marty does, I would appreciate that.
Yeah, and as Alan says too, this is one of the reasons why I was afraid of Canada. I was afraid of the red tape like we saw in Berlin. And with Trudeau there, he's gonna be like, here's all the rules and regulations. You got to follow this, follow that, and it would have just been a nightmare.
I don't know. They do have a lot of automotive manufacturing there already. So
They do, but this is my thought on that, because you do, and just like Berlin is very much like the Detroit of the US, you go up to Canada, it could be very similar. They have the automotive manufacturing there, but that just means that you also have that deep rooted, legacy mentality of stay off my turf. And you get
Berlin
that
does
fight.
have a lot of red tape, and Germany is the leading auto producer in Europe. So that's, to your point, that is correct. So that could be a red tape issue. I don't imagine we're going to have a problem with red tape in Mexico.
Oh, yeah. I think Mexico, I think they went with that choice. I bet you Tom came over, they had enough discussions, and they realized that, Mexico could go up just as fast as Shanghai, whereas Austin and Berlin did not. We might see a Shanghai repeat in Mexico. It's a potential.
Maybe. Texas and Berlin went very, very quickly and are both significantly larger than either phase of Shanghai.
That's true too. And that's one of the things people just thought factory going up took longer for Austin and Berlin, didn't think about the scope of it. True.
Yeah. There were people who would say that when I was doing my weekly, math thing. They'd say, oh, Shanghai got it done in a year. No, Shanghai, all phases combined, is slightly smaller than Texas with its phases. And Shanghai took 2 years, 2.5 to build it all out. Almost 3, really, if you count all the extra buildings, which you do in the square footage. So, yeah, Shanghai took 2 years. They just started building when they got halfway done.
Oh, yeah. Let me see. Honey, if we all talk about Tesla, Ford, even GM, nobody's talking about Stellantis. Why?
Can you name
Stellantis?
So in Europe, Stellantis has EVs. They don't really have them here. They do have the Jeep plug-in hybrid, which I got to experience at the LA Auto Show. Yeah, the LA Auto Show. And it is neat. It is so powerful and torquey and dead silent, which is great for an indoor test drive. But there's not much to say. They're in the US for EVs. They're desperately behind the ball, behind the curve, out of the running.
Yeah. And it's, I don't know enough about Stellantis to dive into that, but it's one of those where Europe has a different market for sure. I've been there enough to know that their market's different, which is why Tesla coming out with a hatchback version of the compact will do extremely well over there. And I'm excited to see that actually coming.
Yeah.
Let's see what else we have. We're going to get off of here in a minute because it's almost my bedtime.
Yeah, it's almost my dinner time.
Oh, yeah.
I only got suggestions for things I can't have.
Oh, yeah. And if you guys still need to throw out some suggestions for Brian's dinner, so let him know what he should be eating.
I might take the family out for dinner. Haven't decided. I'm starving, so...
let me see. Japan has quirky foreign ownership laws for factories, so Tesla might avoid. I've heard that. And Japan is great for manufacturing. Obviously, the 70s, it's Toyota, Honda, all those companies came from Japan. So they're phenomenal with the manufacturing over there. But are they still the place that you want to go? They still have great talent, great engineers. That's a place where Tesla wants to be anyway. That's why they chose Berlin, despite all the challenges that they've faced. They wanted to be where the talent is. And that's what they've done.
If they can't own the factory, that will absolutely rule out Japan, because if they get to own the factory in China without creating a subsidiary that's partially owned by someone local just so that they can they I don't see them doing that.
Let's see. Doesn't Stellantis have a new EV factory in Windsor, Ontario? Doug Ford gave some of them some incentives. I don't know. If you guys know, let us know, because I know I've got could be the same connection that Brian has to Canada for a legacy auto dealer, and hearing about a lot of factory shutdowns going on, a lot of shift stoppages going on due to supply chain issues. And they will not talk about it. So I'm not going to disclose much more information, but it's not looking pretty for some people out there. And you're not going to hear about this stuff in the news. May not even hear about much of it on Twitter. I mean, some of that does get disclosed over there, but you definitely won't hear about it from them themselves for sure.
So what I haven't talked to my source, but I saw a video on YouTube, I want to say yesterday, where the guy, it was a video about how Ford has a problem, and their problem isn't that they can't make them. The problem is that they can't sell them. And he went to lot after lot and was looking at prices. And interestingly, they didn't have the Monroney stickers in the window, which is required by law.
Yeah.
It was because a lot of these dealers were still trying to charge $3,000 to $10,000 markups over and above MSRP without making it clear that that's what they're doing. And so but what he found was rows and rows and rows of F-150s just sitting unsold. Vans, cars, trucks. I mean, not cars, because Ford no longer makes a car unless you count the Mustang, which you should. It is a car. Everything they make is CUV or larger.
Yep. And as Marty is saying here, and this is true as well, supply chain issues is a cover for waning demand, because it's easier for Legacy Auto to come out and say, oh, we're not selling as many vehicles because we're having supply chain issues, can't get the materials we need to make the vehicles. When in reality, like Brian said, if you can't sell your vehicles, you got to stop, because otherwise you're going to have just overflowing lots of cars that are just going to sit there and do nothing. Now you're spending money to not make any money. That's a problem.
Well, your dealers will not keep filling the lots. And if you want to make them before you have someone who's willing to buy them, now you're taking on the cost of flooring that inventory. And flooring can cost 2% a month, is not uncommon, 1% to 2%. So if you've got $1 million in unsold inventory, you're paying 1% to 2% of that balance every month just to keep that cash tied up. It's outrageous.
But yeah, and then you get into the big problem which you have to remember when it comes to dealerships, is the companies themselves, GM, Ford, they put the onus on actually selling the vehicles to consumers on the dealerships.
For sure.
And then when it comes to the dealerships themselves, they have contracts pre-made up. They say, this year you have to buy 50,000 from us this year, and they're required. So they already know ahead of time they're selling 50,000. Doesn't mean that 50,000 vehicles are getting to a consumer. It just means that GM sold 50,000 to a dealership. Now that dealership is sitting on inventory that they have to move.
Right. And it's crazy. Yeah, it's crazy when you figure that, because BMW was doing the same thing. They were able to show huge, look at our EV sales, they're huge, but they were all just stuck on dealer lots. They'd already moved them off their balance sheet and onto someone else's.
And then what you have to remember there is now you're not seeing these vehicles on the road. You see more Teslas on the road for sure. That's because they go right from Tesla to the consumer. And yes, there are places that have inventory for sure, but we can see all of those inventory levels. You can't see the inventory levels at dealerships, and GM or Ford aren't going to report that because they will still report them as sales.
Right. Well, they're sold. They are sold. I think I told you on the show the other day, there's a Subaru Solterra at the dealership here in town.
Yeah.
We'll see how long it sits. I should go check it out.
Yes, you should. Dude, take it for a test drive.
Yeah. I saw someone did have it out for a test drive the other day.
Oh, apparently Farzad made a good video on it. Yeah, I'll check that out.
On what? The supply issue?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll check that out.
Yeah.
Farzad, all right, folks,
out of nowhere and done really well for himself.
Oh God, yeah. Yeah. If you guys don't follow Farzad, great guy. I've had him on my channel a couple of times. He's almost as good as Brian, honestly. He's close to Brian. Brian is top tier.
Interesting. I couldn't get him on my show. I asked him on Twitter, and then he just would not. He said, "Yeah, absolutely." And then I messaged him, and then I sent him, I don't know, 5-6 messages, and just couldn't.
Yeah, I think I lucked out in getting a hold of him myself, and then Peggy, because Peggy had been closer to him. The two of us kind of tag teamed him and got him back on again. But
neat.
Yeah. Neat. But maybe one of these times I'll see if I can reach out. And we'll have him on here with you too, and we'll finally get you guys to connect.
Oh, I've been in other people's spaces with him before.
Oh, awesome. Okay, good.
Just can't get him on my show.
We will work on that.
There is an endless supply of truly brilliant people studying Tesla, following Tesla, talking about it. And then there's also me. Yeah, so that's good.
Wait, Brian and I bring the humor. We got this.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to let Brian go eat his dinner. It's getting late. He's getting hungry. I'm getting tired. We will see you guys later. Brian, thank you very much. Again, follow him, subscribe to his channel, My Tesla Weekend. I'll throw it down in the description later. You guys can check it out there.